Welcome to Speak Up and Stay Alive RadiOh with author, speaker, and your host, Pat Rouleau. Finally, someone willing and able to blow the top off hidden healthcare and hospital dangers. She's provocative, upbeat, balanced, fearless, fresh. Pat has over 20 years of experience as a professional public speaker and knows how to approach this important subject with enough humor and wit to keep you informed, entertained, and empowered. Each week you will say "oh" as Pat explores and exposes little-known hospital hazards, delves into the deep waters of dangerous healthcare practices, picks the brains of her good-looking and influential guests to help keep you and your family stay safe in today's fragmented healthcare system. The program is not intended to replace medical advice from a licensed professional, but rather to encourage you to become a well-informed participant in your health and well-being. And now, your host, Pat Rouleau.
I can't bear again no more, baby. I got too much pride. But I'll survive. Keyboard.
Hello, I am Pat Rouleau, and I will be your hostess, your one-stop patient safety radio hostess, where I will spend the next hour serving you a generous helping of everything you need to know to help you and your loved ones stay safe during any doctor or hospital visit. People ask, who are you? Who am I? I am you. I am every person who has ever been in a hospital or doctor's office and has received less than acceptable treatment. I am you, the person who got an infection during a simple outpatient procedure. I am you, the patient whose questions are ignored, who struggles to speak to the doctor as he or she has one foot out the door. I am the missed heart attack, the hospital-acquired infection, the wrong diagnosis, the unanswered call button. This patient safety show is about you, your family, your friends, and your loved ones. It's about becoming informed of all the hospital hazards, what they are, how and why they happen, and what you can do about them. This show is about empowerment. It's about doing everything you can to stay safe during any and every healthcare encounter. Speak Up and Stay Alive RadiOh. Yes, that's OH with an exclamation point. Will cause you to say "oh" as each week we delve into little-known hospital and healthcare dangers. When you understand why something happens, you are better equipped to do something to change it and prevent it from happening to you. If enough people begin to speak up, together, each of us can alter the current precarious path of today's unsafe healthcare practices. Well, today is the last weekend in June. I must be having fun because time sure is flying. I love summer, and it always seems to blow right by, quite like an Arizona monsoon, which, by the way, should be arriving any time now, for those of you in Arizona. And today's show is also like a monsoon, full of power and energy and heavy downpours of life-saving patient safety tips and tools, not to mention the return of Paul Levy as our guest, as well as the debut of a brand new game. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? But for now, it's time for the healthcare hazard of the week. Well, I'm back to the topic of the patient experience. Providers are trying to define it, to achieve it, to measure it, to standardize and replicate it. Maybe because it's such a difficult thing to describe or define, it therefore becomes immeasurable. Because of this elusiveness, I guess it causes my mind to work on it in an attempt to be the hero that comes up with the one-word solution. So again, I go back to what I like to do with words, and that is to study the root, the origin, and to dig deep into the definition. The word experience. Let's look at that for a moment. The word experience is as something personally encountered, undergone, or lived through, or the process of directly perceiving events or a reality, such as, I have experience with radio broadcasting, or I have experienced an Arizona monsoon. Another definition, and I found this to be kind of curious. The history of the word experience aligns it closely with the concept of the word experiment, because the word experience comes from the Latin word, the act of trying. I found that to be very interesting. Then there's all types of experiences. There's a physical experience, mental, emotional, spiritual, a religious experience, social, virtual, subjective, and on and on and on. Wow. Given all this, it's easy to see how the patient experience just might not be so simple to define and measure. But here's one thing I didn't find through all of my word research. Nowhere did I encounter the word fun or good or the word positive as a description. An experience seems to be just what it is, something that happens without any adjectives attached to it. Now, I think there are two things that happen when we enter the hospital doors or have a healthcare or hospital encounter. Number one, we are paying for a service. And number two, we are buying an experience. Maybe not with dollars, but in our minds and our hearts, we are buying the experience. Or maybe we are buying into the hopes or expectations of a positive experience. With our dollars, we are paying for a service. We are paying for clinical competency, which, after all, that should be a given. Our safety and the provider's ability to perform surgery or other procedures are simply expected. That is the service we are paying for. We are paying for the phlebotomist to draw our blood each morning. We are paying for the nurse to change our bandages. We are paying for the housekeeping staff to keep our room clean. These are things that should happen and are what we pay for. Now, when we leave the hospital and go home, we don't talk about how the surgeon skillfully used a laser to make tiny channels through our heart muscles and into the left ventricle. We don't talk about how easily the nurse put on gloves or unraveled the dressing. We don't talk about how the housekeeper refilled our toilet paper roll. We typically expect that level of competency and service and are willing to trade dollars for that. But when it comes to the experience, that's when we tell everyone we know, wow, my doctor was so kind and explained everything to me, drew pictures, and allowed me to ask all sorts of questions. And after surgery, he came or she came to visit every day. That made me feel safe. What a great experience. And the blood lady, oh, she had so many funny stories to tell. And the guy who cleaned my room, he always asked about my grandkids and told me about his. That is what we are buying. The immeasurable, the emotion, the warm feeling of a random stranger who cares for our outcome. Heart surgery is not fun. It's not a good time. All in all, it's a bad thing to have to experience. Yet in this case, we leave with the feeling of a good experience. Why? Well, first, the outcome was positive and we didn't die on the operating table, but really it's because the doctor took the time to make us feel safe with compassion and empathy. The blood lady lent a little humor to a sharp poke. The housekeeper shared sincere interest and concern for our family. Can this type of soft behavior be standardized? This humanness is not a clinical service. It is the patient's long-term and lasting perception of their experience. It is the experience. It is the patient experience, and it is what we are buying. Remember earlier when I talked about how the origin of the word experience comes from a Latin word that means experiment or the act of trying? Oh man, it's times like these that I wish I hadn't cut so many of my Latin classes, but my instructor reminded me of Caesar, so it was much easier to head off to the old Mobby's hamburger shop than to sit through the Trojan horse translation with Caesar. Oh, sorry, I digress sometimes. But if the experience begins with an act of trying, as patients, let's try this. We cannot rewire our providers to have and to use soft communication skills, but maybe we can encourage it by approaching them first with knowledge and accurate information, with a willingness to ask questions in order to participate and understand what is happening with our health and to our bodies, and to do so in a gentle, honest, and a curious way. I'm still a big believer that when you ask someone for help, in a way that truly sends the message that you do need and want their help, that even the most hardcore personality will respond. Let's experiment and become part of the process in creating our own patient experience. Yes, the experience mostly lies on the doorstep of the provider. Let's help the provider to help us in our buying of a positive patient experience. I think we can do that. Do you?
Help me get my feet back on the ground. Won't you please, please help me, help me, help me. Ooh.
And speaking of help, when it comes to patient safety, we need the help of other providers outside of the healthcare system. Let me ask you a question. Who would make your medical decisions if you were not capable to make them for yourself? Well, here's something to know. Let's hear some legal news that you can use. Let's spend the next 2 minutes with John Thomas, a nice and friendly attorney at Schraff & King, located in Willoughby Hills, Ohio, as we talk about the importance of having a healthcare power of attorney. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks for having me.
John, what is a healthcare power of attorney?
A healthcare power of attorney is a legal document which permits you to name an agent to make healthcare and medical decisions for you if you're incapacitated and unable to make those decisions for yourself.
Who would need to have a healthcare power of attorney in place?
I'd say anyone 18 years or older would need a healthcare power of attorney. A lot of people think it's just something you get when you're older or when you have health concerns, but I can tell you that you have a lot of young people coming in, 18 or 20, 22, asking for them too. And it's the kind of document that a lot of times you don't know you need it until it's too late. And if you're incapable of signing one, unfortunately, you're not going to be able to get one at that point.
So if someone's in the hospital, they're having a healthcare crisis, what happens if they do not have a healthcare power of attorney in place?
If you don't have a healthcare power of attorney in place and you need to have someone make medical decisions for you because you're incapable, your only alternative is to get a guardianship and have that filed down at the court. I can tell you that's a more burdensome process and it has higher costs. So in the long run, to be prudent and have a healthcare power of attorney is really your best option.
There is a difference between a healthcare power of attorney and a financial power of attorney. Just explain that a little bit.
Sure, there are two main types of powers of attorney. The first, healthcare, which is what I just explained. And the second type is a financial power of attorney, which is a document that's specifically tailored to each individual, and it allows them to name an agent to handle their financial needs, similar to the healthcare power of attorney, but it's only for finances.
Many times people think if they have a healthcare power of attorney that person now has the right to address some of their financial issues.
They're two completely separate documents, but again, we normally counsel folks to look into getting both of them.
If our listeners want more information about a healthcare power of attorney, how can they find out more about you and Schraff & King?
Well, they can first go online to our website, schraffking.com, or they can contact us at our offices. The phone number is 440-585-1600.
John, you've got lots of information for us. Thanks for sharing it today.
Thank you.
Generation America supports Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Generation America, the smart, conservative, and traditional 50-plus membership organization. Generation America cares what their members think about the issues affecting seniors and ensure their voices are heard. And they provide a full range of benefits to members. If you're looking for quality Medicare supplement, their rates are lower than the other 50-plus organization 3 out of 4 times. Generation America, on the right side for seniors. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org.
We interrupt our program to bring you a special broadcast.
Today we have our favorite and our in-house infection prevention guru, Daryl Hicks, author of the book Infection Prevention for Dummies, and is nationally recognized as one of the industry experts in infection prevention and control as it relates to cleaning. Welcome to the show, Daryl.
Good to be here.
We thought we'd include you in today's game of infection prevention for dummies word association.
All right, this is a 4-letter word that's a bad word. But not that bad.
Oh, no, not on this show. Show.
MRSA.
Dirty.
I know.
Yeah, it's quite dirty. It's MRSA.
Oh, what do you think of, Bob?
I think it's a super bug.
Yeah, I think of a staph infection.
You're all very close. It's a very serious thing. In fact, that's how I got involved in infection prevention and cleaning, is that my 37-year-old daughter-in-law actually died of what I believe was MRSA, and she was just working out in gyms the time that she got it in the crease of her thumb, and within 6 weeks was dead. And so it is out there in the public. It's called community-acquired MRSA. It's methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, and used to be back in the 70s that only about 4% of the staph infections in hospitals were MRSA, and today it's more like 80% of those who are 65 or older, 80% of those staph infections are MRSA, and it is a superbug. We call it superbug because it is resistant to antibiotics. Methicillin is an antibiotic, and it's kind of the end of the line, and there is no stronger medicine than methicillin. And when you get an organism that is resistant to methicillin, there's really no cure for it. You will live with that condition. It may go into a lull, but then it can pop up and be active again. But if it gets into the bloodstream, it could be deadly.
Daryl, thank you for joining us today. How can our listeners learn more about you and your important book, Infection Prevention for Dummies?
Go to my website, www.darrellhicks.com, DARRELHICKS.com.
Daryl, we look forward to your weekly guest visits as you always have so much usable information to share. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Pat. It's been fun.
You're listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. I am your hostess, Pat Rouleau, and today we're going beyond the best. We have Paul Levy with us, perhaps the most well-known and former hospital CEO in the United States. Paul Levy was president and CEO of Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center from 2002 to 2011, the teaching hospital associated with Harvard University. During his hospital tenure, he also authored a blog titled Running a Hospital and was one of very few hospital CEOs to share publicly via social media the inside issues of the hospital, such as hand washing compliance and infection rates, with the goal of transparency. His current blog is called Not Running a Hospital and is one of my favorite online reads. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks, Pat. Great to be with you.
Thank you. Let's talk about mistakes. I had some folks on from your state of Massachusetts talking about disclosure, apology, and offer.
Right.
Yeah, and in Massachusetts, they're choosing to call it, which I prefer, communication, apology, and resolution.
Yeah, so the story here is, for years, and even now to a great extent, people in the medical profession were taught that you didn't admit mistakes. That no good could come of it. In fact, I was once talking to a cardiothoracic surgeon who told me about his residency training 30 years ago, where his mentor, a senior doctor, was doing chest surgery, lung surgery on a patient, and by mistake cut into the wrong side, realized it, stitched him up, and then did the correct side. And when the patient woke up, the doctor said, while we were in there, we checked the other side just to make sure you're fine. And this doctor, who was a very good lung surgeon 30 years later, said, wow, have times changed? So what we've learned is the following. Usually when a mistake occurs in the hospital or environment, it could have happened to anybody, to any other nurse or any other doctor. It's very, very unlikely that it's a specific doctor making a specific mistake that couldn't happen in another way. And so the mistake is indicative of some kind of systemic problem that's going on in the hospital. It's not a matter of negligence. It's a matter of the way the work is organized. So what you want to do is you want to create an environment in the hospital, which we call a just culture, which basically is designed to encourage people, doctors and nurses, when they make a mistake or see one, or a near miss for that matter, to do two things. One is to report it to their chief or head of their department or quality control department right away, so an analysis can be done of what went wrong and why, so the hospital can get better at avoiding that. That's one thing. The other thing is, it turns out it's very important to tell the patient or their loved ones about what went wrong, to explain it in common terms, not technical terms, but in easily understood terms, to apologize and to mean the apology, and to be sympathetic to the concerns of the patient, to explain what the ramifications of the mistake are. Is this going to hurt you more, or are you going to have to stay in the hospital longer? Do you need to come back for another surgery? Whatever it is. And then, significantly, to explain to the family what we learned from the mistake and how it's likely to affect our procedures so that other people don't have to live through the same problem. Right. It turns out that people, if you do it that way, most people who, after all, want to trust their doctors and nurses in the first place actually end up having more trust for the doctor or the nurse who's made the mistake. because they've been honest, they've been sympathetic. And it turns out that people, too, are very generous of spirit in the sense that if they suffered a misfortune like this, they would like to know that other people are less likely to as a result of what happened to them. So an important part of the disclosure and all that is to say, here's what we've learned about this, and here's what we're going to do to try and fix it so it doesn't happen again. Now, part of the problem is that doctors and nurses have not been trained to do this as part of their medical education. And so what we did in our hospital and what a number of other hospitals have done is to create kind of SWAT teams to help a doctor or a nurse do this kind of disclosure and apology. So they would call up the phone number and they'd say, oh, I just did a bad thing with Mrs. Smith. Can you come and talk to me because I want to disclose and apologize to her? Please help me help me learn how to do that better. And that kind of support from the administration turns out to be very valuable for doctors and nurses.
And I think that the doctors and nurses are what they call the second victims. I can't imagine what that must feel like.
I will tell you, having talked to them, that it feels awful.
Mm-hmm.
Awful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, here you are, you're a doctor, you've taken an oath to do no harm. And it's a serious oath. You've devoted your life to that. And all of a sudden you've done a wrong side surgery, or you've caused an infection, or you've done something else wrong. You do not feel good. In fact, you feel awful.
Right.
And sometimes it's that awful feeling that actually paralyzes the doctor and makes it difficult for him or her to go through the disclosure and apology thing because they're so wrapped up in their own psychic damage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people don't like the term second victim.
Okay.
They think those people, I don't have a problem with it myself, but they think that it diminishes the problems that the first victim has had.
Oh, okay.
By equalizing it between the provider and the patient.
That's interesting.
And I can't make a judgment as to whether that term does that or not, but I will say that doctor or that nurse feels
that
awful,
mm-hmm.
really feels, and often needs counseling and support. And part of the problem is that the medical community in the past has viewed an admission of error on the part of a doctor as something to denigrate. And luckily, now with time going on, that attitude is changing, and not a moment too soon.
Well, yes, I hope this takes hold because I think it's good for everyone. And I do think that that's really what the patient wants to know is that having gone through that, now maybe talking about it and looking back at processes and systems can be changed so that it doesn't happen to someone else. I really think that's all that people want. I don't seriously think they're looking for the litigation side of it.
Well, and if they are, they're going to litigate anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah. But what we did find is that if you approach it this way, even if there was a fairly serious error made, the likelihood of litigation went down. Because one of the things you offer as the hospital is restitution or compensation as part of the discussion. And you even say to the patient, if you'd like your lawyer to contact us, we're happy to do so. We don't want to go to court over this. We acknowledge that we've made a mistake and we want to make things right for you. At a minimum, you avoid hundreds of thousands of dollars in litigation expense. The case gets resolved in weeks instead of years.
Years, yeah.
And that's better for the patient and the doctor too. By the way, I've had a friend, a doctor, a cardiologist, who was accused of malpractice. He was not guilty of it, by the way. But it took 3 years of his life in depositions and stress and the like, just to go through the lawsuit. And he was cleared at the end, but it was a terrible experience for him, almost worse than probably the patient felt.
Not a healthy process for anyone.
No. It's still a necessary process for those real cases of negligence and so on.
Right.
But the vast majority, as I was saying, the vast majority of errors that are made in hospital settings could have happened to any doctor or any nurse.
Right. Paul,
Yeah.
I have several emails. Do you have some time to just give some real quick answers to those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. A Massachusetts gal emailed, I would be interested in knowing from him if he has seen a substantial change in how hospitals approach safety issues, not just in Massachusetts, but other states.
The answer is it's highly scattered. There are some hospitals that are doing a spectacular job, and there are some that are still in the dark ages. It all lies with the leadership of the hospital, the board of trustees, and the CEO.
An infection preventionist and a hospital environmental services director emailed Pat, ask Mr. Levy, what do you think of the frontline housekeeper's role as infection preventionist? If you agree that the housekeeper is one of the keys to a hospital's infection prevention program, why don't they get the recognition that accompanies that role?
Well, they're singing my song, because to me it's the frontline staff that make the difference in a hospital, and I know they did in my hospital. And especially the frontline staff, including housekeepers, transporters, and food service workers.
Yes.
If you think about those three job groups, they have more exposure to patients and spend more time with patients than anybody else in the hospital, than the nurses and then the doctors especially. And they have so much to tell us and participate so much in ways that can make life better for everybody in the hospital. In fact, there's a chapter in my book that talks about a woman named Gloria Martinez, a transporter, and how she saved lives in our hospital.
So good. He'll be happy to hear the answer to that. He always says that one good housekeeper, given enough time and the tools and the training, can save more lives than a room full of doctors.
I think that's true.
Yeah, I agree. Another quick one, Ralph, the resident, Facebooked, I have a two-part question. What does the patient experience mean to you? And are patients responsible in part for their patient experience?
Well, it should be a partnership between the patients and their loved ones and their providers. And everybody's in there for the same reason. And the trick is to break down the age-old divide between providers and patients. And they each have a lot to learn from one another. And I think that's what we're all seeking to have happen.
Absolutely, to work together. And I want to know, what do you think about radio as a means to improve healthcare safety?
I think radio is the best medium of all. In fact, when I'm driving home listening to a Red Sox game on the radio and I pull into my driveway and I could go inside and watch it on TV, I stay and I listen to it on the radio. It's a compelling medium. It reaches us in ways that nothing else can, because it enables us to think while we're listening, and we use our imagination and our creativity in a way that does not happen when you watch TV, where you become a passive viewer, and does not happen as much online as well. So I love radio.
So I'm on the right track, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. We're considering Paul as the father of using social media, that would be blogging, to improve healthcare in real time to encourage transparency. Tell us about your book, Goal Play, Leadership Lessons from the Soccer Field.
Okay. Although I consider my fatherhood of my two daughters as much more important than the blogging
I'm sure.
or the book. But but one of those daughters was involved in playing soccer as a little girl, and I was her coach and coached her for many years. And then when she graduated, I kept coaching. And I really enjoy the time with the kids, and I love to see them develop individually and as a team, and watch them grow and enjoy the game, and all those things that are wonderful parts of sports. And being a coach in that environment is a very special relationship. And one of the things I noticed over the years of coaching and also running organizations, most recently the hospital, is that what seemed to work in terms of coaching these 11-year-old girls in a soccer team also seemed to work in running a large organization. That when you're in a managerial or a leadership position in an organization, not just the CEO, but anywhere in an organization, your job is really of a coach. It's to try to build a team, to help people learn, to give positive reinforcement, and the like. And so after I left the hospital, I finally sat down and wrote the book about this, and it's called Goal Play, Leadership Lessons from the Soccer Field. And each chapter starts with an anecdote from my days coaching the little kids, and then I move into stories about healthcare and other businesses and try to draw out lessons that would be useful to people in leadership roles. I wrote the book because I always wanted to, and as you know, when you write a book, you're just putting yourself out there, and you wonder, is anyone going to read it?
Mm-hmm.
Does anyone care about what I've said? And I've been really heartened by the response to the book. People really enjoy it. Many people tell me they've read it through twice. They read it once, and then they read it through again and take notes and mark it up and so on. So I feel really good that it's gotten that response.
Well, how can our listeners find the book? Where can they get a hold of it?
Well, you can find it on Amazon, and so it's available in paper version. It's also available in Kindle version on Amazon. And then there's a wonderful site called Smashwords, smashwords.com, where you can also upload any other ebook format that you might have for your iPad, your Nook, your Sony thing, whatever. You have no excuse not to buy the book at this point.
And where can folks find your blog? What is it called again?
It's called Not Running a Hospital, and the easiest way is just put Paul Levy's blog, do a Google search, Paul Levy's blog, and it's the first thing that will pop up.
And you are there.
Would love to have readers. Besides the blog itself, I'm on Twitter as Paul F. Levy. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn, of course, and you can follow the blog in any of those ways. Once you get to the blog, you can actually subscribe to it and have it delivered to you at 7 o'clock every morning Eastern Time with a brand new story.
It's a great blog. You can spend days and days delving through all of those articles, which I've spent quite a bit of time on.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
You have to say so.
Do you have any final words of advice for our listeners today?
Pat, what you've said so often in your materials, which in your book and in your interviews, your website, which is when you're going in for medical treatment, it's a difficult time. It's a stressful time. You're there because you don't want to be there usually. And it's a very difficult thing to advocate for yourself when you're in that situation. You may not feel good. You may be on some drugs, some narcotics, whatever it is. So whenever possible, have someone go with you who knows you well, who can represent you well, and will not be intimidated by the setting they're in. And they can do this in a respectful, kind way with the providers. Remember that those nurses and doctors are working hard and they're tired and stressed out too. But if you or that other person engage in good, respectful conversations with your providers, there's a much better likelihood that the experience will be better for you and a higher likelihood that you won't be harmed by the experience.
Paul, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. I hope that you come back again and again.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it's been a pleasure being with you.
Once again, we have my friend Elizabeth Bailey with us, and she is ready to share some valuable patient safety checklists with us found in her book, The Patient's Checklist. Listen as Elizabeth spends the next 2 minutes with us to share some of her easy-to-use checklist tips and tools. Well, here's a question for you, Elizabeth. If you cannot be with your loved one all the time, I'm guessing that there's certain important times to be there. What times might those be?
One way is to organize a schedule where you stagger visits, so you will always have someone with you at key moments when mistakes and miscommunications can happen. And these tend to be at times of transition. It's important to have someone with you, if possible, when your nurses change shifts, because that way you're overlapping with the two nurses and you can find out what has happened that day. Is all the right and appropriate information being relayed? Medication times, so that you can monitor your loved one's medications. If you're there when that medication is supposed to be administered and it's late, you can flag it with the staff. Oftentimes, I think it's important to find out, when do doctors do their rounds? Because you can wait for hours and they don't show up when you're there. But if you know that this particular doctor always does his rounds at 7 a.m., you can be there at that time and you can discuss whatever concerns your loved one or you may have. So I think the most important times are shift changes and moments when your care is transferred.
Great advice. And tell our listeners how they can learn more about you and where they can purchase your book.
My book is on Amazon, but you can find out more about my book and me by going to my website, thepatientschecklist.com.
Well, Elizabeth, I thank you for sharing your wisdom and advice with us today. You and I have had similar paths, and I am happy that those paths have crossed. And you're a welcome addition to our show, and I look forward to more of your tips next week.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio. Now you can join us every Saturday morning on two Cleveland, Ohio stations from 7 to 8 Eastern on AM 1420 WHK and from 9 to 10 Eastern on AM 1220 WHKW and on 2 Phoenix stations on Saturday morning in Phoenix, Arizona from 6 to 7 Mountain Time on AM 1360 KPXQ, and on Sundays in Phoenix from 9 to 10 Mountain Time on AM 960 KKNT. Or you can always listen to us live online from anywhere in the world at the station's websites. I am your hostess, Pat Rulo. So happy to spend this hour with you to help you survive any healthcare or hospital encounter. And remember, if you like what you hear on this radio show, I speak live and in person too. In fact, we're even better in person. Our presentations are fast-paced, interactive, and chock full of immediately usable patient safety tips and tools. I can guarantee that your crowd will love it. So email or call me to talk about speaking to your business, your club, your church, or hospital. I speak both to the patient perspective or the provider. Email us at speak@speakupandstayalive.com or call me directly at 440-725-5462. You and your audience will be glad you did. Well, today we dug way back in the game chamber and pulled out a brand new game. And I'm happy that you're listening with us today to experience the debut of Are You in Jeopardy or Are You Safe? Here's how it goes. I will describe a healthcare or hospital-associated scene, and you, our contestants, will have to decide how you would react to the situation. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe?
Is Don in the booth? He's ready. Okay, here we go. In 5, 4, 3, 2, cue lights, music.
Now entering the studio are today's contestants.
I'm Bob from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and a former financial planner.
All right, we've got Bob from Gatlinburg, and who else do we have?
I'm Christy Ruggles from Broadview Heights.
Chris, and what do you do?
I like to do a lot of scrapbooking.
All right, you guys. And we also have you, our dedicated to patient safety listeners from all over the globe.
These people will compete today on
Are You in Jeopardy or Are You Safe? All right, are you ready to go?
Let's do it.
All right, here's the first scenario. You are visiting a family member in the hospital. The doctor walks in and shakes your hand. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? What do you say, Bob?
I think you're definitely in jeopardy if he hadn't washed his hands.
And what do you think, Christy? Christy from Broadview Heights, what do you say?
I would say you're in jeopardy, too. Unless he's wearing gloves, maybe.
All right.
I don't think that'd make any difference if he's wearing gloves or not. He still touched the door handles.
Uh-huh. You are in jeopardy. I think everyone should know the answer to that. Here's the question. Where has that hand been? Exactly, Bob. Touching the doorknob? The clipboard? You know, it's not weird or rude to politely ask and then insist that everyone wash their hands prior to touching you, even if you're not the patient. It's all about cross-contamination, which happens quickly and easily. So when in the hospital, be a germaphobe and be a clean freak.
I agree with you.
Okay, I'll bring my wipes.
Bring your wipes with you. All right.
A whole box of them.
All right, here's scenario number 2. You are recovering from some orthopedic surgery that has you bedridden. You seldom change positions. What a peaceful time to catch up on your rest. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? What do you say, Chris?
Well, I've heard that if you don't get up enough, you could develop a bed sore.
You've got a good answer there. And what do you say, Bob?
Well, that's definitely a jeopardy problem because you could really have some big problems there.
That's right.
If you're not moving.
That's right. You're both right. You are in jeopardy. While being bedridden may help you catch up on your sleep, be aware of pressure ulcers, which people call bed sores. They can occur anytime you remain in a single position for a prolonged period of time. So be mindful to move positions every hour or two, or cushion with pillows, or you can ask for a rotating bed. And it's not just pressure that causes these sores, but friction and shear are 2 other ways.
What's shear?
Yeah, people don't know about shear. That's if you're laying in, a hospital bed and you start to sink in the sheets and you're pulling one way and the sheets are pulling in the opposite direction. That shear can pull the skin and cause a small tear, which then results in a pressure sore or a bed sore.
Ugh,
If you develop a pressure sore, isn't that a never event that never should happen and the hospitals are liable for that?
That's absolutely true. It is considered a never event, which means actually Medicare doesn't pay for that. And so the hospitals should do everything they can to avoid
any kind of pressure sores.
Yep.
Okay.
So move around. All right, guys.
Okay.
Got it?
Got it.
All right. Here's scenario number 3. You are about to have surgery on your right elbow. Your surgeon takes an indelible marker and draws a circle around the correct spot. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? What do you say, Chris?
I'd say you're safe.
What do you think, Bob?
That could go either way. You could be safe or you could be in jeopardy. Depends on if the indelible ink washes off for some reason when they rub alcohol on it or something.
Well, that's very true.
It could be a wrong site surgery maybe.
Well, it could if it did wash off and
if it washed off.
Exactly.
I've heard of that happening.
Well, I think if it's an indelible pen, hopefully it doesn't happen. And I would agree you are safe at least when it comes to reducing your chances of a wrong site surgery. You might get something else, an infection or whatever, but at least that marking could avoid that. So I'm going to suggest that as a patient or an advocate or a family member, ask to have the surgical spot marked in front of you, not after you've been doused with anesthesia. Right?
I agree with you on that.
Good advice, yeah.
Great. Thank you, guys. All right, here's scenario number 4. You are a patient in the hospital. The nurse comes in to change a bandage, puts on a clean pair of gloves, and pulls the privacy curtain closed just prior to changing the dressing. When she leaves, she pulls the curtain closed. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe?
I'm going to say you're definitely in jeopardy there because if you listen to your show before with Daryl Hicks, he says privacy curtains are just dangerous. And if she pulled a privacy curtain and then came to touch you, you're in jeopardy.
What do you think, Chris?
Well, I think Bob just answered it. I guess the curtain could have bacteria on it.
Absolutely. It sounds like double jeopardy to me. Not only did she or he contaminate their gloves with whatever germs were already on the curtain, but then they recontaminated the curtain with the same gloves used during your dressing change.
That is double jeopardy.
It is double.
You get 2 prizes for that?
I hope
That's
not.
gross.
Oh, thank you. That's the prize you get, Chris.
You summed it up. Oh, good job, guys.
Wow.
All right, here's scenario number 5. You are a patient in the hospital and are taking several medications. The nurse walks in with all of your meds in a cup of applesauce to make it easier for you to swallow. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? What do you think, Chris?
Oh, that sounds scary. You don't know what's in the applesauce.
What do you think, Bobby?
You are definitely in jeopardy. If you don't know what your pill is and it dissolves, what the heck are you going to do?
Absolutely. Here's the one question I would ask. What is in that bowl? Are they really your meds? Are they the correct ones? And how can you identify them now that they're all melted and smooshed? The answer, always know what medications you take, what they look like, and why you take them. I'm going to suggest to keep track of them in the patient safety logs that you can find on the speakupandstayalive.com website. So every time you get a pill, match it up with what you know to be correct. Right, guys?
I agree with
good.
you. Yeah, those safety logs are pretty important.
All right. Just eat a blind bowl of applesauce.
I had a friend buy one of those from you one time, and they use it all the time.
Excellent advice. Thank you, Bob. All right. And now for our last and our final scenario, number 6. You are heading to the hospital for gallbladder surgery. Before you dash out of the house, you grab your marked up copy of the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, Your Hospital Survival Guide. When you get there, you lay it on your tray table for everyone to notice. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe?
I'm going to say you're safe because I think that is a very important book. If you haven't read it, you need to.
What do you say, Chris?
Did you clean your table first before you put it down?
Excellent point.
I didn't.
You're in jeopardy, Bob.
I'm in jeopardy.
After you've cleaned your table, like Chris suggests, it's a great way to send a nonverbal message to everyone who enters your room that you are interested to be informed. Plus, the tray table is where everyone likes to put their stuff, bandages, blood drawing supplies, and meal trays. Now, They either have to move the book, or at the very least, they have to look at it. So it's a great conversation starter and a relationship builder. And it's like what I talked about earlier about the patient experience. It's simply a non-threatening way to connect with your providers on your terms, that being an informed, concerned, and empowered patient. That was great advice, Chris. Thank you. Well, guys, I'm not sure who won that, but you're both winners because now you know a little bit more about patient safety.
If I had won, what would have I got?
Well, I'll tell you what you wouldn't have won. You would not have won a lifetime supply of turtle wax or 600 cases of rice-a-roni, the San Francisco treat, or 8 rooms of Broyhill furniture.
Oh, my God. That's terrible. I'm sorry I didn't win.
Chris, thank you for joining us today.
Of course.
And
thanks for having me.
You are welcome. What are you scrapbooking right now?
Oh, some photos from a vacation to Florida.
Oh, how fun. Well,
It is fun.
It is fun. I'll let you get back to that. Thank you, Bob, and thank you, Chris. Thank you, Don Pardo, and thank you, friends, for playing our newest and most fun game ever. Are you in jeopardy or are you safe? And listeners, don't go anywhere. There's so much more you can learn about healthcare and hospital safety on America's favorite and perhaps only patient safety radio show, Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, today, I'm honored to have the spokesperson for this smart alternative to AARP with us today, and he is the legendary Chuck Woolery. Listen, as I spend the next 2 minutes with Chuck. Welcome to the show, Chuck.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Nice to be on your show.
Well, thank you. How can our listeners who may currently be involved with AARP make the move to Generation America?
When you're moving parts of your life from one entity to another, like AARP to Generation America, they handle all that, take care of all that. And since we're not an insurance company, like AARP is an insurance company, so they're going to charge you what they can charge you. We're looking for the best deal for you, so a lot of times we can get a much better deal for you. We offer all the same things that they offer. So it's a lot simpler than you think. And, of course, if you haven't really tagged somebody yet and said you're it, then it's obviously easy to come to Generation America as well.
Pretty much all Medicare supplement plans are the same. It's the price that's different. And so
yeah, that's somebody who advocates for you and looks out for your best interest, and that's what drew me to them, is because that's what they do, and that's what they should do.
Yeah. So the first thing we can do is to join Generation America, not just for the excellent benefits, but more importantly, to build the voice of sensible thinking people and to change the current precarious path currently being laid for our seniors, right?
Well, that's why you're on radio. I'm not. That is about as concise as you can possibly put it.
Thank you for being here.
All right. Thank you.
To learn more and to join Generation America, visit generationamerica.org. You are listening to Speak Up and Stay Alive, Patient Safety Radio, every Saturday morning in Cleveland, Ohio, and every Sunday morning in Phoenix, Arizona. I am your hostess, Pat Rulo, author of the book Speak Up and Stay Alive, The Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide, available at all of our live speaking events or at our website, speakupandstayalive.com. That's where you can also locate radio showtimes, dates, and station information. That's speakupandstayalive.com. Well, today we talked about the patient experience and the little-known fact that the historical root of the word comes from a Latin word that means to experiment or to try. So let's try as patients and experiment with the thought of reaching out to our healthcare providers from a position of power, not subservience. And that can only come about if and when you are informed and have knowledge about your symptoms, your diagnosis, about healthcare hazards, all of which you get from this show. Enter every healthcare situation with information and a willingness to ask for help. It's all about being a partner with your providers to help create the patient experience you are buying into, that you expect, and that you deserve. And our guest, Paul Levy, once again shared his valuable thoughts with us today. And I encourage you to read his blog, Not Running a Hospital, and to get a copy of his book, Goal Play, leadership lessons from the soccer field. And our new fun game, Are You in Jeopardy or Are You Safe?, was just a lighthearted way to drive some important patient safety tips into your brain. Now, if you missed some of today's show, you are in jeopardy. But you can still get the Daily Double by visiting the website speakupandstayalive.com. There you can listen to today's show in its entirety, and you can also purchase the book, Speak Up and Stay Alive, the Patient Advocate Hospital Survival Guide, written by me, just for you. 2 ways to get out of jeopardy. And I think it's safe to say that when you join us each week, you may be adding years to your life or to the life of someone you know and love. So set your alarm clocks for Saturday and Sunday mornings and tune in. And tell your friends. Patient safety should not be a secret. So start your week with an O. Speak Up and Stay Alive, RadiOh. And let me take a moment to thank all of our radio sponsors and our weekly guest experts, because thanks to them, we are here, and that helps keep you safe. We have Schraff & King, attorneys for all of your advanced planning needs in Willoughby Hills, Ohio. And Daryl Hicks, consultant and author of the book, Infection Prevention for Dummies. Generation America, the AARP alternative. Elizabeth Bailey, the author of The Patient's Checklist, and Junction Auto Family in beautiful Chardon, Ohio. And in Arizona, we have Mountain View Funeral Home and Cemetery in Mesa and Queen Creek. Power Tags, Titles, and more, also in Queen Creek. Hari Khalsa, your champion for healthcare advocacy solutions. And we have Casey Quinlan, Mighty Casey Media, and author of Cancer for Christmas, and also the Coyote Coupon Books. I encourage you to support these fine folks, and you can find their information at the speakupandstayalive.com website. Oh, and be sure to listen next week as we continue to inform and entertain, all the while keeping you safe during every healthcare and hospital encounter. And of course, the boys will be here to play whatever game we pull from the giant game chamber. Always a fun way to share important healthcare and hospital survival tips and tools with you. So when is that? You know when that is. It's next Saturday morning, where you can find us in Cleveland, Ohio, from 7 to 8 Eastern on AM 1420 WHK, and from 9 to 10 Eastern on AM 1220 WHKW, and on Saturday mornings in Phoenix, Arizona, from 6 to 7 Mountain Time on AM 1360 KPXQ. And then again on Sunday morning in Phoenix, you can listen from 9 to 10 Mountain Time on AM 960 KKNT. And as always, you can listen live via the internet. Check the speakupandstayalive.com website to find out how. In the meantime, I hope you have a healthy and a happy week. I am Pat Rouleau, and I am your guide to safe and successful healthcare and hospital encounters.
The information provided in today's broadcast is for informational purposes only and was not intended for use as diagnosis or treatment of a health problem and should not be considered as medical advice. If you've missed part of today's show or just want to share the information with friends, you can listen to all of Pat's previous shows at speakupandstayalive.com. Want even more information? Purchase a copy of Pat's book at speakupandstayalive.com. Once again, it's speakupandstayalive.com. Have questions or comments? Become a friend on Facebook. We're called Speak Up and Stay Alive. Or you can call Pat at 440-725-5462. Until next week, remember, it's okay to ask others to wash their hands. You have to speak up and stay alive.
Survive. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Generation America supports Speak Up and Stay Alive Radio. Generation America, the smart, conservative, and traditional 50-plus membership organization. Generation America cares what their members think about the issues affecting seniors and ensure their voices are heard. And they provide a full range of benefits to members. If you're looking for quality Medicare supplement, their rates are lower than the other 50-plus organization 3 out of 4 times. Generation America, on the right side for seniors. To join and to find out more, visit generationamerica.org.